In the pantheon of television's most memorable characters, Silvio Dante stands as a unique figure, a man whose unwavering loyalty, sharp business acumen, and distinctive mannerisms made him an indispensable part of one of television's greatest dramas. Unlike many characters in the series who undergo dramatic transformations or reveal hidden depths that contradict their initial presentations, Silvio remains remarkably consistent throughout the show's run, a rock of stability in an increasingly chaotic world. This essay explores Silvio Dante's complete journey through the series, examining his backstory, his role within the Daimyo crime family, his relationships with other characters, and his significance to the broader themes of the show. Silvio Dante's backstory, while never fully elaborated in extensive detail during the series, is revealed through various conversations, flashbacks, and contextual information that paints a picture of a man deeply embedded in the world of organized crime from his youth. Born and raised in New Jersey, Silvio came of age during the 1960s and 1970s, a formative period for the American mafia that saw both its greatest power and the beginning of its gradual decline. The most significant glimpse into Silvio's early life comes through flashback sequences that appear in the episode To Save Us All from Satan's Power, and more extensively in the Sopranos prequel film The Many Saints of Newark, though the series itself provides the foundation for understanding his character. What we learn from the show is that Silvio and Tony Soprano have known each other since they were young men, forming a bond that would last decades and survive the countless betrayals and violence that characterized their world. Silvio's entry into organized crime appears to have been almost inevitable given his environment and associations. Growing up in North Jersey during an era when the mafia wielded considerable influence over local businesses, politics, and everyday life, young men like Silvio were naturally drawn into the orbit of established crews. His intelligence, discretion, and reliability would have made him an attractive prospect for recruitment into what would become the DiMeo crime family. Unlike some of his associates who stumbled into the life through desperation or family obligation, Silvio seems to have embraced the mafia's culture and codes with genuine conviction. His deep knowledge of mob history, his respect for tradition, and his adherence to the old rules suggest someone who didn't just participate in organized crime for profit, but who believed in its structure and mythology. This ideological commitment would become one of his defining characteristics throughout the series. The flashback sequences in the show reveal that by the time he was a young adult, Silvio had already adopted many of the mannerisms and stylistic choices that would define him for decades. His slicked back hair, his preference for sharp suits, and his measured way of speaking were all established early, suggesting a young man who consciously crafted a persona that fit his conception of what a mobster should be. This wasn't mere affectation. It was a deliberate construction of identity that reflected his commitment to the life he had chosen. Silvio's relationship with Tony Soprano's father, Johnny Boy Soprano, appears to have been significant in his early development. Johnny Boy was a respected and feared member of the Daimeo family, and his mentorship would have been valuable for an ambitious young associate. The loyalty Silvio later shows to Tony can be understood partly as an extension of the respect he held for Tony's father. In the world of the mafia, such familial connections often created bonds that transcended individual relationships, tying men together across generations. One of Silvio's most prominent roles throughout the series is as the owner and operator of the Bada Bing strip club, an establishment that serves as both a legitimate business and a front for the family's illegal activities. The Bada Bing is more than just a strip club. It's a crucial piece of infrastructure for the Daimeo family, serving as a neutral meeting ground, a place to conduct business away from law enforcement surveillance, or so they hope, and a source of legitimate income that can be used to launder money from illegal enterprises. Silvio's management of the Bada Bing reveals much about his character and capabilities. He runs a tight ship, maintaining order among the dancers, ensuring that customers are satisfied, and keeping the books in a way that can withstand at least cursory scrutiny from tax authorities. His treatment of the women who work for him is complex. While he's not above the casual misogyny that characterizes the mob's culture, he also demonstrates a degree of professionalism and even protection toward his employees. He expects them to follow rules, but he also doesn't tolerate anyone, including made men, treating them with excessive cruelty or disrespect that might disrupt the business. The Bada Bing also serves as a kind of second home for Tony and his crew. It's where they gather to discuss business, socialize, and escape from the pressures of their home lives. Silvio's role as the proprietor gives him a unique position. He's simultaneously a host, a business partner, and a fellow soldier. He maintains the space, ensures its utility, and participates in the endless conversations and schemes that unfold within its walls. The club becomes almost a character itself in the series, and Silvio's stewardship of it reflects his broader role as a maintainer of structure and continuity. Beyond the bada bing, Silvio has interests in various other enterprises, both legal and illegal. Like most members of the crew, he participates in the standard rackets, loan sharking, gambling, extortion, and theft. His business acumen makes him valuable in these operations, as he can assess opportunities, manage risks, and handle the financial aspects of criminal enterprise. He's not the most aggressive earner in the crew, but he's steady and reliable, qualities that Tony values highly. The role of consigliere Silvio's position as consigliere to Tony Soprano is perhaps his most significant role in the series. The consigliere, in traditional mafia structure, serves as an advisor to the boss, someone who can offer counsel, mediate disputes, and provide perspective on important decisions. It's a position that requires intelligence, discretion, and above all, absolute loyalty. Silvio embodies all of these qualities, making him ideally suited for the role. As consigliere, Silvio occupies a unique position in the family hierarchy. He's not in the direct chain of command in the same way that the underboss is. He doesn't automatically assume leadership if Tony is incapacitated, and he doesn't directly supervise the captains and their crews. Instead, his power is more subtle and more personal. He has Tony's ear, and his opinions carry weight precisely because they come from a place of loyalty rather than ambition. Throughout the series, we see Silvio fulfill his role as consigliere in numerous ways. He offers advice on personnel decisions, helping Tony navigate the complex politics of the family. When disputes arise between members of the crew, Silvio often serves as a mediator, using his knowledge of mob protocol and his personal relationships to find solutions that maintain harmony. When Tony needs to think through a difficult decision, Silvio is often the person he consults, serving as a sounding board who can be trusted to keep confidences and offer honest assessments. One of Silvio's most important functions as consigliere is to serve as an institutional memory and a guardian of tradition. He's deeply versed in mafia history and protocol, frequently citing precedents and invoking traditional rules to guide decision-making. In a world that's increasingly chaotic and where the old codes are breaking down, Silvio represents continuity with the past. He reminds Tony and the others of how things are supposed to be done, even as he recognizes that the world is changing. This traditionalism sometimes puts Silvio at odds with the younger generation of mobsters who are less respectful of the old ways and more willing to break rules for personal advantage. Silvio views this erosion of standards with dismay, seeing it as symptomatic of a broader decline in the quality and honor of the life. Yet he's pragmatic enough to adapt when necessary, understanding that survival sometimes requires flexibility. Silvio's loyalty to Tony is unwavering throughout the series, a quality that becomes increasingly rare and valuable as the show progresses. While other members of the crew plot, betray, and pursue their own agendas, Silvio remains steadfast. This doesn't mean he's sycophantic or uncritical. He's willing to disagree with Tony and offer contrary opinions when he thinks Tony is making a mistake. But his disagreements come from a place of concern for Tony and the family, not from personal ambition or resentment. While Silvio's professional life is well documented throughout the series, his personal life receives less attention, though what we see reveals important aspects of his character. Silvio is married to Gabriella Dante, and their relationship appears to be stable and relatively harmonious, at least compared to the turbulent marriages of many other characters in the series. Gabriella is portrayed as a traditional mob wife, supportive of her husband, socially connected to the other wives, and willfully ignorant of the specific details of Silvio's criminal activities. She enjoys the lifestyle that his income provides and participates fully in the social world of the mob families. But she maintains the careful separation between the domestic sphere and the business sphere that characterizes successful mafia marriages. The Dantes have children, though they appear only occasionally in the series and are generally kept at a distance from the criminal activities of their father. This protective instinct, the desire to shield one's children from the realities of the life while still enjoying its benefits, is common among the mobsters in the show. Silvio seems to be a caring father, concerned with his children's well-being and future, even as his own choices have created potential risks and complications for them. Silvio's relationship with Gabriella demonstrates a different side of his personality. At home, he can be relaxed, even tender, a contrast to the carefully controlled persona he presents in his professional life. Yet even in his domestic sphere, Silvio maintains a certain formality and reserve. He's not emotionally demonstrative in the way that some characters are, preferring to show his care through actions rather than words. The stability of Silvio's marriage stands in stark contrast to the chaos of Tony's relationship with Carmela, the violent dysfunction of other mob couples, and the numerous affairs and betrayals that characterize the personal lives of the crew. This stability isn't accidental. It reflects Silvio's nature as someone who values order, loyalty, and continuity. He applies the same principles to his personal life that he does to his professional life, maintaining boundaries and fulfilling obligations. Silvio's friendships within the crew are also significant. His closest relationship is obviously with Tony, but he also has long-standing connections with Paulie and other members of the old guard. These relationships are complicated by the demands of the life. Friendships are always subordinate to business, and the potential for betrayal is ever present, but they also provide genuine companionship and shared understanding. These men have known each other for decades, have been through countless experiences together, and share a common language and worldview that outsiders can't fully understand. When we first meet Silvio Dante in the pilot episode of The Sopranos, he's already an established presence in Tony's world. The show doesn't need to introduce him or explain his role, he simply is there, an integral part of the landscape. This itself is significant, as it establishes from the beginning that Silvio is not a character who needs to prove himself or earn his place. He's already earned it long ago. In the first season, Silvio serves primarily as a supporting character, but an important one. He's present at key meetings, offers advice when asked, and participates in the crew's various schemes and operations. His role is largely to provide stability and counsel, to be the voice of reason and tradition in a world that often seems to be spinning out of control. One of Silvio's most memorable moments in the first season comes during a discussion about the appropriate way to handle a problem. When someone suggests a solution that violates traditional mafia protocol, Silvio objects, explaining the historical precedent and the reasons why certain rules exist. This scene establishes a pattern that will continue throughout the series. Silvio, as the guardian of institutional knowledge, the person who remembers how things are supposed to be done and why. Silvio's relationship with Tony is also well established in the first season. We see that Tony trusts Silvio implicitly, values his opinion, and relies on him for both practical assistance and emotional support. When Tony is struggling with the pressures of leadership, wrestling with his panic attacks, or dealing with family problems, Silvio is often there, providing a steadying presence. He doesn't pry into Tony's personal business, but he's observant and attentive, ready to help when needed. The first season also establishes Silvio's role at the Bada Bing. We see him managing the club, dealing with the dancers, and hosting the crew's informal meetings. The Bada Bing becomes a central location in the show, and Silvio's presence there gives him visibility and importance even in scenes where he's not a primary participant in the action. Throughout the first season, Silvio demonstrates the qualities that will define him throughout the series: loyalty, competence, adherence to tradition, and a certain world-weary pragmatism. He's seen it all before, and he understands how the game is played. He's not naive about the brutality and corruption of the life, but he's accepted it and found his place within it. Season 2. The Voice of Experience. The second season of The Sopranos continues to develop Silvio's character, giving him more opportunities to demonstrate his value to Tony and the family. As the season explores themes of loyalty, tradition, and the changing nature of organized crime, Silvio becomes increasingly important as a representative of the old ways and the voice of institutional memory. One significant storyline in the second season involves the crew's interactions with Richie Aprile, a capo who returns from prison and struggles to adapt to the changed circumstances of the family. Richie is from the old school, but his old school attitudes are out of step even with traditionalists like Silvio. Where Silvio represents tradition as a stabilizing force, Richie represents it as a rigid inflexibility that can't accommodate necessary changes. Silvio's interactions with Richie are telling. He treats the older man with respect, acknowledging his status and his history, but he's also clearly allied with Tony and supportive of Tony's leadership. When Richie begins to chafe against Tony's authority and plot against him, Silvio recognizes the danger and stands firmly on Tony's side. This loyalty is not blind. Silvio understands the legitimate grievances that Richie might have, but it's absolute in its commitment to Tony as the rightful boss. The second season also features storyline elements involving labor racketeering, particularly involving the construction and waste management industries. Silvio participates in these schemes, demonstrating his business acumen and his ability to navigate the complex relationships between the mob, unions, and legitimate businesses. These storylines show Silvio as a competent operator who can handle the practical aspects of criminal enterprise while maintaining the discretion necessary to avoid legal problems. Throughout the second season, Silvio continues to serve as a confidant to Tony, offering advice on both business and personal matters. When Tony is struggling with his mother's manipulations, his wife's suspicions about his therapy, and the various pressures of leadership, Silvio is a constant presence, providing support without being intrusive. He has a talent for knowing when to speak and when to remain silent, when to offer advice, and when to simply be present. Silvio's domestic life also receives some attention in the second season. We see more of his relationship with Gabriella and get a sense of his home life. These scenes provide important context for understanding Silvio as a complete character, not just as a mobster, but as a husband and father trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy despite the nature of his profession. The third season of The Sopranos presents some of the most significant challenges to Tony's leadership and to the stability of the family, and Silvio's role becomes even more crucial as he helps Tony navigate these troubled waters. The season deals with themes of loyalty, betrayal, and the increasingly complex relationship between Tony and his crew. One of the most important developments in the third season is the tension between Tony and his cousin, Tony Blondetto, who is in prison during this season, but whose presence is felt through various references and relationships. More immediately, the season deals with conflicts between Tony and various members of his crew, including tensions with Ralph Cifaretto, a volatile and ambitious capo who joins the crew during this season. Silvio's interactions with Ralph are fascinating because they reveal the limits of Silvio's traditional approach. Ralph is talented and earns well, but he's also disrespectful, brutal in ways that violate unwritten rules, and generally contemptuous of the codes that men like Silvio hold dear. Silvio disapproves of Ralph, but he also recognizes Ralph's value to the family. This tension between practical necessity and principled objection is something Silvio must navigate carefully. The third season also features increased pressure from law enforcement, with the FBI stepping up their surveillance and investigation of the family. Silvio, as a high-ranking member of the organization, is naturally a target of this scrutiny. His response to this pressure reveals his experience and discipline. He's careful about what he says, where he goes, and who he associates with. He understands the danger and takes appropriate precautions without becoming paranoid or ineffective. One of the most emotionally resonant moments for Silvio in the third season comes during discussions about the mafia's decline and the changing nature of the life. Silvio is philosophical about these changes, recognizing them as inevitable while still mourning what's being lost. He represents a kind of tragic awareness. He knows that the world he valued is disappearing, that the codes he respected are being forgotten, but he continues to uphold them anyway because to do otherwise would be to betray everything he believes in. Silvio's relationship with Tony deepens in the third season as Tony faces increasingly serious challenges to his authority and his mental health. Tony's panic attacks continue, and his therapy with Dr. Melfi becomes more intense and revealing. Silvio is not privy to the details of Tony's therapy. Tony keeps this strictly confidential, but Silvio is perceptive enough to recognize when Tony is struggling and needs support. He provides this support in his own way, through loyalty, competence, and steady presence. The season also explores the relationships between the mob families and their involvement in various criminal enterprises. Silvio participates in negotiations with other families, demonstrates his diplomatic skills, and helps maintain the delicate balance of power that keeps peace among the various criminal organizations. His experience and knowledge of protocols make him valuable in these situations, as he knows how to navigate the complex etiquette of inter-family relations. Season 4, Crisis and Adaptation. The fourth season of The Sopranos brings new challenges and complications, and Silvio must adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining his core role as consigliere and Tony's trusted advisor. This season is marked by conflicts both within the family and with outside forces, requiring careful navigation and strategic thinking. One of the most significant storylines of the fourth season involves Carmine Lupertazzi Sr., the boss of the New York family, and the complicated relationship between the New Jersey and New York families. Silvio is intimately involved in these negotiations and conflicts, serving as Tony's representative in various meetings and helping to manage the delicate diplomacy required to maintain beneficial relationships while protecting the interests of the New Jersey family. Silvio's diplomatic skills are on full display during these negotiations. He understands the importance of showing respect while not appearing weak, of making concessions while defending essential interests, and of maintaining relationships while being prepared for betrayal. His performance in these situations demonstrates why he holds the position of consigliere. He has the intelligence, experience, and temperament to handle complex political situations. The fourth season also deals with continued tensions within the family, particularly involving Ralph Cifaretto. Ralph's increasingly erratic behavior and his conflict with Tony over various matters create a volatile situation that Silvio must help manage. When Ralph kills a young dancer named Tracy at the Bada Bing in a brutal assault, Silvio is outraged both by the act itself and by the fact that it occurred at his establishment. This incident reveals Silvio's moral boundaries. While he's willing to accept violence as part of the life, there are lines that shouldn't be crossed, and Ralph's behavior crosses those lines. The situation with Ralph escalates throughout the season, ultimately leading to Tony killing Ralph in a moment of rage. While Silvio is not directly involved in this act, he must deal with its aftermath. The need to dispose of Ralph's body and manage the fallout from his disappearance requires careful work, and Silvio is part of the team that handles these grim necessities. His calm competence in dealing with such situations shows his experience and his ability to manage crises. Silvio's personal life continues to be relatively stable during the fourth season, providing a contrast to the chaos in the professional sphere. His relationship with Gabriella remains solid, and his home provides a refuge from the stresses of the life. This stability is important because it allows Silvio to be a source of stability for others, particularly Tony, who is dealing with mounting pressures from all sides. The fourth season also features storylines involving the various business enterprises of the family, including construction, waste management, and other rackets. Silvio participates in these activities, continuing to demonstrate his value as both an earner and a manager. He understands how to structure deals, how to maintain relationships with civilian business partners, and how to maximize profit while minimizing risk. One particularly notable aspect of Silvio's character that becomes more apparent in the fourth season is his awareness of his own limitations. Unlike some of the other characters who have inflated senses of their own importance or capabilities, Silvio understands what he's good at and what he's not. He's an advisor, a diplomat, a manager. He's not a warrior or a street fighter in the way that some of the younger members of the crew are. He knows his role and fulfills it without seeking glory or recognition beyond what's appropriate. Season 5. Taking Command. The fifth season of The Sopranos provides one of the most crucial tests of Silvio's character and capabilities, when Tony is shot by Uncle Junior in a moment of confused dementia. With Tony in a coma and fighting for his life, Silvio must temporarily assume leadership of the family, a responsibility that reveals both his strengths and his limitations. Silvio's assumption of acting boss responsibilities is handled with characteristic seriousness and dedication. He understands the gravity of the situation and the importance of maintaining stability during Tony's incapacitation. However, the stress of being the boss, even temporarily, proves to be overwhelming for Silvio. He suffers from severe anxiety, asthma attacks, and physical symptoms that mirror Tony's panic attacks. This development is crucial for understanding Silvio's character. He's an excellent consigliere and a loyal soldier, but he's not built to bear the ultimate responsibility of leadership. The way Silvio handles this situation reveals his self-awareness and integrity. He doesn't pretend to be something he's not, or allow pride to prevent him from acknowledging his limitations. When Tony recovers and returns to leadership, Silvio is relieved to resume his proper role. This storyline reinforces one of the show's recurring themes, that different people have different capabilities, and that success comes from finding one's proper place rather than aspiring to roles for which one is unsuited. During his time as acting boss, Silvio must deal with various challenges, including managing the ongoing conflicts with New York, handling the crew's various business operations, and maintaining order among the sometimes fractious members of the family. He approaches these tasks with diligence and care, consulting with the captains, making reasonable decisions, and trying to maintain the status quo until Tony can return. His performance is competent, but also clearly stressful for him, demonstrating that the skills required for being consigliere don't automatically translate into the skills needed for being boss. The fifth season also features the return of Tony Blondetto, Tony's cousin who is released from prison and tries to go straight. Silvio's interactions with Tony B are cordial but cautious. He respects Tony B's connection to Tony Soprano and supports efforts to help him succeed in legitimate business, but he's also wary. Years in prison change people, and Silvio is experienced enough to know that Tony B's reintegration into civilian life will be challenging. When Tony B eventually violates his parole and returns to criminal activity, Silvio is disappointed, but not surprised. The subsequent complications, including Tony B's unauthorized killing of a member of the New York family, create a crisis that threatens to spiral into full-scale war. Silvio participates in the efforts to manage this crisis, offering counsel to Tony as he struggles with the impossible choice between protecting his cousin and maintaining peace with New York. The resolution of the Tony B situation, with Tony Soprano ultimately killing his own cousin to prevent a war, is one of the most tragic moments in the series, and Silvio witnesses Tony's pain and moral struggle throughout this ordeal. He doesn't offer empty platitudes or try to make Tony feel better about the choice, but his presence and understanding provide some measure of support. This is Silvio at his best, recognizing when silence and presence are more valuable than words. Throughout the fifth season, Silvio continues to manage the Bada Bing and participate in the family's various criminal enterprises. The club remains a crucial gathering place for the crew, and Silvio's stewardship ensures its continued utility. His business operations continue to generate income, and his reliability as an earner remains consistent. The sixth and final season of The Sopranos, split into two parts, brings the story toward its conclusion, and Silvio's role remains crucial as the family faces its most serious challenges. The season is marked by escalating violence, betrayals, and the sense that the world these men have built is collapsing around them. Part 1 of the sixth season deals extensively with the conflict between New Jersey and New York, a conflict that has been building throughout the series and finally comes to a head. Johnny Sack, the boss of the New York family, is arrested and eventually pleads guilty, creating a power vacuum that leads to internal struggles in New York. These struggles have direct implications for New Jersey, and Silvio must help Tony navigate these dangerous waters. Silvio's diplomatic experience becomes crucial during this period. He participates in meetings with New York representatives, helps assess the reliability of various New York factions, and advises Tony on how to position the New Jersey family to best advantage during New York's internal conflicts. His knowledge of personalities, history, and protocol proves invaluable as Tony tries to maintain beneficial relationships while protecting his own interests. The season also features the unraveling of Vito Spatafore, a high-earning captain who is revealed to be homosexual. This revelation creates a crisis for the family, as the traditional mafia culture is violently homophobic. Silvio's reaction to the Vito situation is complex. He's a traditionalist, and his initial response reflects the prejudices of his culture. However, he's also pragmatic and recognizes that Vito's earning capacity is significant. The tension between traditional attitudes and practical considerations creates a dilemma that the family must resolve. The resolution of the Vito situation, with Vito being killed by Phil Leotardo of the New York family, represents a failure of diplomacy and control. Tony had been trying to manage the situation in a way that might preserve Vito's life while respecting the sensibilities of the more traditional members of both families. The fact that Phil acts unilaterally demonstrates the declining respect for boundaries and protocols, a development that deeply troubles Silvio. Throughout the 6th season, the sense of decline and decay becomes more pronounced. The old rules are increasingly ignored. Younger members of the organization show less respect for tradition and hierarchy, and the law enforcement pressure continues to mount. Silvio represents the old order trying to maintain itself against these forces, but his success is limited. He can preserve traditions in his own sphere of influence, but he can't stop the broader cultural changes that are transforming the mafia. The second part of the 6th season, often referred to as Season 6B, brings the series to its conclusion with escalating violence and tragedy. The conflict with New York intensifies dramatically when Phil Leotardo decides to eliminate the top leadership of the New Jersey family. This decision leads to a war that will cost lives on both sides and fundamentally alter the landscape of organized crime in the region. Silvio's loyalty and competence are on full display during this crisis. He participates in war councils, helps plan defensive measures, and continues to offer Tony counsel and support. When members of the crew are targeted and killed, Silvio helps manage the response, balancing the need for retaliation with the practical considerations of survival. His experience and steady temperament are crucial during this chaotic period. The war with New York reaches its devastating climax when Phil's crew launches coordinated attacks on Tony's leadership. Bobby Bacala, Tony's brother-in-law and a captain in the family, is killed in a hobby shop. Silvio himself is targeted while visiting the Bada Bing. In one of the series' most shocking moments, Silvio is shot multiple times during the attack on the Bada Bing. He survives the initial assault, but is left in critical condition, falling into a coma from which he never awakens during the series' timeline. Silvio's shooting and coma represent a profound loss for Tony and the family. He's been Tony's most loyal and capable advisor, a constant presence and source of stability. His absence during the final episodes of the series is palpable, and Tony must face the climactic events without Silvio's counsel and support. This development reinforces the show's themes about the ultimate cost of the life and the inevitable destruction it brings. One of Silvio's most distinctive and memorable characteristics is his Michael Corleone impression, featuring his exaggerated imitation of Al Pacino's iconic character from the Godfather films. This running gag serves multiple functions within the series and reveals important aspects of Silvio's character and the show's broader themes. The irony, of course, is that the world of The Sopranos is very different from the world of The Godfather. Where the Corleone family operated with a certain dignity and grandeur, the members of Tony's crew are often petty, cruel, and motivated by base impulses rather than noble principles. The codes that the Corleones honored are increasingly ignored or corrupted in Tony's world. Silvio's affection for The Godfather represents a kind of nostalgia for a version of the mafia that may never have truly existed. This tension between the mythologized version of the mafia and its tawdry reality is one of the show's central themes, and Silvio's Michael Corleone impression serves as a recurring reminder of this gap. Every time he does the impression, we're reminded of what these men wish they were versus what they actually are. It's simultaneously funny and sad, a joke that contains within it a deeper truth about self-delusion and misplaced romanticism. Silvio's impressions also reveal his desire for connection and approval from his peers. When he performs them, he's seeking laughter and appreciation from the men around him. It's a humanizing detail that shows Silvio isn't just a cold advisor, but someone who wants to be liked and accepted by his friends. These moments of levity and camaraderie are important for understanding the bonds between these men, and why loyalty persists despite frequent betrayals. Silvio's moral framework. Silvio Dante stands as one of the most memorable and significant characters in The Sopranos, a figure whose importance extends far beyond his screen time or dramatic spotlight. Through his unwavering loyalty, his commitment to tradition, his competent management of both legitimate and illegitimate enterprises, and his steady counsel to Tony Soprano, Silvio embodies crucial themes and tensions within the series. As consigliere, Silvio represents institutional memory and continuity in a world of constant change and chaos. He's the voice reminding everyone of how things are supposed to be done, the guardian of protocols and traditions, the link to a past that may have been better or may simply be romanticized. His Michael Corleone impressions are both comic relief and poignant reminder of the gap between the mythologized mafia of cinema and the tawdry reality of Tony's crew. Silvio's tragedy is that he genuinely believes in codes that are increasingly ignored, values that are progressively corrupted, and an institution that's crumbling around him. His loyalty, his greatest virtue, binds him to a sinking ship. Yet he never wavers, never betrays his principles, never abandons his post. In the end, this loyalty cost him everything: his health, his consciousness, and presumably his life. Through Silvio, The Sopranos explores questions about loyalty and betrayal, tradition and change, honor and corruption. He shows us both the appeal of the mafia's culture, its emphasis on loyalty, its clear codes, its sense of belonging, and its ultimate hollowness. The codes he values are used to justify terrible acts. The loyalty he prizes is often betrayed. The traditions he honors are based on exploitation and violence. Yet we can't simply dismiss Silvio as deluded or evil. He's a man trying to live according to principles in a world that increasingly rejects those principles. He's committed to loyalty when everyone around him is motivated by self-interest. He values professionalism in a culture of increasing sloppiness. He maintains dignity in undignified circumstances. These qualities, while exercised in service of criminal enterprise, are nonetheless admirable in themselves. Silvio's ultimate fate, lying in a coma, a casualty of a war that violated all the codes he believed in, is emblematic of the series' tragic vision. The life he chose and the values he held couldn't protect him. The loyalty he gave so freely couldn't save him. The codes he respected were ultimately meaningless in the face of brutal reality. And yet, he remained true to himself until the end, never compromising, never betraying, never abandoning his principles. In the end, Silvio Dante represents both the best and worst of the mafia culture, its emphasis on loyalty and brotherhood alongside its violence and criminality, its codes of honor alongside its fundamental dishonor, its promise of belonging alongside its ultimate betrayal of those who believe in it. He's a true believer in a system that doesn't deserve his faith, a loyal soldier in an unworthy cause, a man of principle in a world without principles. His journey from the confident consigliere of the early seasons to the comatose victim of the final season charts the broader trajectory of the world he inhabited, a world in decline, where the old codes no longer hold, where loyalty is punished rather than rewarded, where violence destroys everything it touches. Silvio Dante's story is ultimately a tragedy, but it's a tragedy that illuminates fundamental truths about loyalty, honor, and the cost of commitment to flawed ideals. In the pantheon of the Sopranos characters, he stands as an essential figure, one whose steady presence and ultimate fate reveal as much about the show's themes as the more prominently featured characters. Through all 6 seasons, Silvio remains remarkably consistent, a rock in a stormy sea, a voice of tradition in a changing world, a loyal friend in a culture of betrayal. This consistency is both his strength and his limitation, the source of his value and the cause of his destruction. He is finally exactly what he appears to be, a true believer, a faithful servant, a man who kept faith with his principles even when they failed him. In a show full of complex, contradictory characters, Silvio's straightforward commitment to his values makes him both unusual and essential. He reminds us of what the mafia claims to be about, even as the show reveals what it actually is.